All right, let's get right into it. The European Union has just rolled out its AI Act, and it's this massive, really ambitious rulebook for governing artificial intelligence. But that brings up a huge question right away. How on earth do you regulate a technology that doesn't care about borders?
I mean, really think about it. If an AI system is built in Silicon Valley or maybe Seoul or anywhere outside the EU, how does Brussels actually make sure it plays by European rules? If something goes wrong, who's on the hook? Well, the answer is a brand new rule, and it comes with some pretty serious responsibility.
And here it is, meet the AI importer. And no, we're not just talking about some shipping agent here. Under the new AI Act, this person or this company is the official gatekeeper. They're the first point of contact, the first line of defense, and, crucially, the legal entity inside the EU that's responsible for making sure high-risk AI from abroad meets Europe's really strict standards.
Now, what's really fascinating is that this whole gatekeeper role wasn't just pulled out of thin air. It was actually forged in a years-long debate between the big players in the EU. It was a real legislative tug-of-war over just how much power this gatekeeper should actually have. So, the whole journey started back in 2021 with a pretty simple proposal. But by 2023, things started heating up. The European Parliament wanted to basically supercharge the importer's role, giving them some deep investigative powers. Then the EU Council, which represents the member states, pushed back hard, worried this would just create massive bottlenecks. So the final law we have today is this hard-fought compromise between those two very different visions.
And this slide just illustrates that conflict perfectly. On one side, you had the Parliament's vision, the importer as a proactive detective. Someone who could demand access to system logs and actively hunt for risks. But on the other side, the Council saw them as more of a reactive clerk. Basically an administrative checkpoint to make sure all the right boxes were ticked and the paperwork was filed.
Ultimately, this quote really sums it all up. The final rulebook had to be a careful balancing act. The goal was to build a system that was strong enough to protect people, but not so heavy-handed that it would just crush innovation or trade. So where did they end up?
Well, that compromise resulted in a really clear mandatory checklist for any importer who wants to bring a high-risk AI system into the EU. Let's break down exactly what they have to do.
It all boils down to this 4-point check. Before a system can be sold, the importer has to verify a few things. First, that the provider has done the official safety assessment. Second, that all the technical paperwork is complete and in order. Third, that it has that proper EU safety mark, the CE mark, and comes with instructions. And finally, number 4, that the company outside the EU has appointed an official contact person inside the EU.
And let me be clear, this is so much more than just a paperwork exercise. It's a legal declaration. It's a European company saying, yes, we've done our homework, and we believe this powerful technology from outside our borders meets the safety standards required to be here. It's a huge deal.
Okay, but what happens after the system is already on the market? Does the importer's job just end at the border? Nope. They have ongoing responsibilities, especially if a problem pops up later.
So if an importer even suspects a system isn't compliant, they are legally forbidden from selling it. Full stop. And if a risk shows up later, let's say an AI used for hiring is found to be discriminating against a certain group of people, that importer has a duty to act immediately. They have to sound the alarm, notifying the original developer, their EU rep, and the national authorities in charge of market safety.
And get this isn't some short-term gig. Importers are required to keep all the key documents, like that declaration of conformity, for a full 10 years after the system hits the market. This creates a really crucial paper trail, making sure accountability doesn't just vanish over time. It lets authorities investigate issues long after a product was first launched.
And here's where we see that key compromise in action. While importers don't have to be those proactive detectives, they're not just clerks either. The final law says they have to actively cooperate with authorities to reduce or mitigate risks. They are now officially partners in safety.
So, okay, these rules create a powerful new gatekeeper inside the EU. But why should this matter to the rest of the world? Well, because this entire model is designed to have a massive global ripple effect.
First up, it establishes this idea of shared responsibility. The AI Act makes it crystal clear that accountability doesn't just stop with the original developer. No, it's spread across the entire chain, making sure there's always a legal entity within the EU that can be held responsible. Second, and this is a big one, it sets a global standard. You might have heard of this as the Brussels effect.
Basically, if an AI company anywhere in the world wants to access the huge lucrative EU market, well, now they have to build their systems to meet Europe's high standards for safety and rights, because they know there's going to be a gatekeeper at the door checking their work.
And finally, it really all comes down to building trust. For you and me, this means knowing that when we're using some high-risk AI system, a responsible company inside the EU has actually checked it out. That oversight is all about building public confidence that these incredibly powerful technologies are being used safely and ethically.
So, the EU has made its choice, a network of commercial importers who've been turned into regulatory gatekeepers. But this leaves us with one final crucial question to think about. As AI keeps dissolving borders and becomes this truly global force, who, ultimately, should be the one standing at the gate?